Welcome to the Healers Café, conversations on health and healing with Dr. Manon.
So hello and welcome to the Healers Café. And today I have a really special guest, and his name is Matt Lyon. And he's a chiropractor with network spinal analysis. He's also, you have a training in Chinese, or master's in Chinese medicine, correct?
Yes.
And your field of focus and energy is energy.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm sure that's the very short version. So tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll get going.
Well, it's great to be here. I'm just really grateful. It's great to see you again, Manon. I love the synchronicity of life that we met at in Lambertsville, New Jersey, at a training we're both doing to up-level our teaching and influence capacity. So yeah, I've been a chiropractor for almost 20 years. I knew I wanted to be a chiropractor when I was 11. And I just had an innate sense that there was an energy in me and all around me. So as a child, I was very aware that there was some creative force, and not to sound woo-woo, but I literally could see energy. I felt it. And I thought, oh my God, there's got to be something to this. And I remember I met this chiropractor in my hometown, and he was so cool. And I thought, wait. And then he gave me this whole spiel about how there's an intelligence that runs through your body. And if it's blocked, you're not well. If it's unblocked, you're healthy. And I was like, there's something that feels true about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that, I particularly agree with that exact model these days, but there was something really true about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's what I wanted to do. And I loved helping people. And I just had a kind of empathic, sensitive spirit. So it was my thing. And I went through college with the intent to be a chiropractor and got to chiropractic college and fell in love with acupuncture and Chinese medicine as well. And my first foray into the world of fascia was craniosacral work from John Upledger, and then some of the more subtle components with Hugh Milne and Franklin Sills, and then was really interested in Myers anatomy trains and acupuncture as a fascial thing. And then I found network, which was a combination of learning how the fields of energy in and around the body really influence physiology, and that we could support that and support its evolution and connection through various techniques. So that really became my work. And then my practice, which was actually a really large practice. It shocked me and my wife, because we were, started out with absolutely, 2 pennies to rub together. And we built a clinic that was really a kind of a one of a kind in the Southeast of the United States. And I love the Southeast. It's a bit of my heritage. At the time we opened up this clinic, though, the South was not open to energy medicine.
Right.
And so
that's 20 years ago.
Yeah. So we came in, and actually it was about 2009.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just had a message for people that you're more than you think you are. And we don't have energy. We are energy. And your body is a conduit of that. And let us teach you how to heal yourself and how to wake up. I mean, real simple things. And then we use network, and then we use breathing exercises. And then we did lots of workshops, and I also taught meditation. But the idea is that our purpose was really clear, is that we wanted to empower people to heal and wake up, and not us doing it. Because, as John Upledger said, the inner physician, the physician is inside. Yeah. It's this incredible intelligence, this organizing intelligence that lives in us and moves in us. And it's in that intelligence that we have our being. And it just so happens that fascia and the nervous system and the energy system are all sort of one contiguous dance. And teaching people to become more aware of it and have agency with it, have a relationship with their true self, was profoundly healing. So at one point we had like a 9-month waiting list to come into our clinic. And I would always scratch my head. I was like, oh my God, how is this? But what I realized is that people were getting such good results because they were learning to be in relationship with this energy, with this intelligence. And for sure, when fascia gets blocked, when the meninges get torqued, torques and creates resonance patterns of disconnection to the whole body, I mean, that can totally tweak someone's perspective of life, their perception of themselves, their immune system, pain pathways, on and on and on. So I realized that this thing we were dealing with was much bigger than health. It was much bigger than disease. It was just life itself. Because we can't experience life without this incredible sensitive sensory apparatus. So that's what I became really passionate about and got more and more interested in energy and intelligence and energetic fields and morphic fields, and cell signaling through the microtubules and light and all those things that we got really excited about talking about in Lambertsville. So I'll pause there and just see
if I have a question. I feel like you're a twin brother or something.
I know, that's
it's
it.
Like it's uncanny, like the experience. But I love when you said it's like I don't remember your words. That's the problem. I just remember the feeling I got.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I'm a feeling centric more than anything else. But it's like we have to have sensitive apparatuses to appreciate life in its whole, right? And it's so it's very interesting because it's very much aligned with, now diagnosis, if we don't like, cool, that's a story, and and this is a story, and this is a story, and everything else, but the way you live your life is the bigger story. And how do you connect to that? So anyway, it's very it's great to hear this. Okay, before we go to the part that I'm so excited to share, you did touch upon how you started as, and again, I share the same definition as healer. We don't self-identify that way because the healer is really the person within. I get that totally.
Right.
But there's a little piece of us that feels called. And so for you, what did it start with this chiropractor? Or did it start by this notion, or did you have some earlier experience, or what made you connect to this is the path, and then you chose the path?
Oh, it's such a great question. There were a couple of experiences I had as a child that I would say were unity or unification experiences. So to me, there's this flow of 4 stages of, we all have awareness, but most people aren't aware that they're aware. So their thoughts are just kind of all over the place, or it's on coronavirus or Donald Trump or, whatever. I'm in the United States, so these things are hot topics here. Who's going to win the election?
Canada, no worries.
Yeah. Right. So most people were just kind of, we have 80,000 thoughts per day, according to the research from Martin Seligman, and 80% of those for the average person are negative. So most people, and me too sometimes, right? Most people are in this sort of trance, a bit of a sleepwalking, and we just sort of believe our thoughts, and our thoughts sort of then construct a reality that we then ascribe meaning and reality to. So there was a couple moments as a kid where all that just sort of unzipped and unpacked, and I felt, experienced, saw the world and people as energy, as light, almost as if, if you were to take a picture and zoom in on it and it becomes pixelated, you begin to see the space between things, to experience the space between you and I. I mean, you're in Vancouver, I'm in the Rocky Mountains, and yet I can become aware of the space between us as a living field of intelligence. And that's what I experienced. And I didn't know at the time, but there was an intuitive capacity. I mean, everybody's intuitive, and anybody can cultivate those gifts. Like you, I think, some people are, we have a friend who's a professional Olympic swimmer. Like, she's just inclined to swim. Like, I can swim, you can swim, but she can go to the Olympics. Some people have maybe more of an endowment on the intuitive gifts. And I think maybe you and I are similar in that way. So that was there. So I had a primordial intuitive sense of a greater meaning of life than what I saw. I thought there's something behind this veil of reality, and it's energy, it's living, it's an intelligence. I was very interested in spirituality of different varieties, yogic traditions, Buddhist traditions from a really early age. I became quite obsessed. with studying the brain and the nervous system. My dad was a neuroscientist, and he had Netter's atlases. And I remember just pouring through them, and I would get really excited about the nervous system part. So there was an innate knowing, there was a draw and a call. And so, yes, there was a call. And while the healer is within, one gift that healers have is because of the energy that they can tune into and bring awareness to, they can awaken that potential in other people. You know, sometimes, you know, while anybody can turn on the light in their room, if someone hands them a candle, they'll actually see that there's a light switch. But here, you know, before that, they might not have been aware of the possibility.
Yeah, and actually, I have another theory for that.
Yeah, please.
It's you know, in homeopathy, it's like cures like, right?
Yes.
So it's this law of similarity. If you don't have something within you that the other one can see, it isn't seen, right? It has to
totally
be. Yeah, and I think I mean, you speak to that, but it reminded me of that.
Oh God, it's brilliant. And not to go off on a non sequitur here, but it really relates. You know, that the double slit experiment in quantum physics, we don't need to get into the complexity of the experiment, but it clearly showed us that as an observer, the way I observe the observed thing changes that thing.
Yeah.
So as healer, is if I observe wellness and wholeness and fluidity and suppleness in a person, quantum physics would tell me if I change the way I look at something, the thing that I'm looking at is changing. And so that by my observation of someone in wholeness, in vivid aliveness, I actually awaken that potential in them. You know, as if I put my hands on someone, and I would always get this sense of quickly becoming like a fiber optic cable, moving through people's bodies really quickly. And I was given the moniker medical intuitive by a very famous medical intuitive. And I was never comfortable with that term for a couple of reasons. One, because I didn't want to be a medical intuitive. I didn't want to get into the pressure of having to diagnose disease. But something about my awareness would be able to go into people's bodies and travel through connective tissues, find where the blocks were. And I would notice this again and again and again. You know, one of my mentors, he would always say, Matt, where it is where it ain't. Where it is where it ain't. He was this North Carolinian chiropractor, meaning I would never even put my hands on the area of the person that hurt, but simply by tuning into where these blocks were and bringing wholeness to it. Yeah. Whether that was through touch or a procedure, I didn't do Bowen work, but similar stuff. And then people would have these incredible experiences of healing pain, as you know, having emotional releases of stuff that have been holding them back for years, changing their whole focus, their whole meaning, their whole language patterns, completely changing the range of emotions they could feel, all because of this ability to be present, to be in this law of similarity, and thus awakening some dormant potential within, awakening this giant within. So
brilliant words of saying it. I think this is going to be the longest part. No, we'll keep it to 40 minutes. We just might have to continue part 2.
Yeah, sure.
Later. But okay, what I was going to say is, you know, so some of the people watching the podcast may not be completely up to date with, or completely in tune with what you're talking about, especially when you said this split testing. If you're able to explain a bit more, I think it'd be fascinating, so that it's not like just brushed over. I would love you to go, can you go into that a little bit more so that people could relate, that may not need, there's, you know, holistic or doctors who are now looking for complementary health. They're starting to get disenchanted by the limitations of what they've learned, and they still went into it with the same heart that we all do when we want to help people, you know. And it's really, like, well, I really want to you know, to these concepts that some people go, oh my gosh, it's not scientific. I'm trying to bring as much science to it so that anyone, and you're so well spoken, if you have something to share on that level, make it really clear, I would really love that.
Let's totally. So I'll put on, you know, let's just make things a little, I don't want to say concrete, but we can crystallize a lot of these. I don't even want to call them concepts. We can crystallize these realities into some working models. So we can create some contextual models.
Yeah.
Related to, I think there's two things that would be important to talk about. And the first is that just who we are in a clinical encounter can change the clinical encounter. We know that through the placebo research. We know that through nocebo research. We also know that through various disciplines within quantum physics that studied how the scientific observers would look for the electron is where the electron would show up. Or in this double slit experience where the observer directed their attention, because wherever attention goes is where energy flows, that's where there would be these photons that would make a mark. So meaning my awareness, my intention, my presence, my being has an effect. We could even say then that typically, you know, Newtonian physics says there's a law of cause and effect. Newtonian physics are amazing. You know, if you want to fly an airplane from Vancouver to Denver, Colorado, and come visit me, you definitely want an airplane that was built on the principles of Newtonian physics. But in quantum physics, it includes all of Newtonian physics, but it says it's not necessarily a law of cause and effect. It says that our intention, our awareness, our consciousness can affect a cause. And there's very good data to support this. Now, we make some suppositions and extrapolations in that, which maybe seem woo-woo to some, but the basics of it are, if I change the way I look at something, that thing that I look at changes. I mean, it's so obvious to me, having worked with thousands of patients and coached doctors who've also worked with thousands of patients, that the most important job I had was my being. Who am I being? And if my focus is on love and support and empathy and connection, dramatically different outcomes than if I felt rushed, if I felt frustrated, if I didn't feel certain in my protocols, which is why I think it's so important for students to get in a system they love and trust, maybe like Bowen, and to really learn it, to get certain, and that certainty fills them. And then they've seen the outcomes, and then they go into something that can produce a result again and again, and then build their certainty. And that certainty creates more energy and then greater unconscious competency, which is when intuition can really drop in. But that's why you got to pay your dues and do the hard work and learn the techniques. Yes. So I wanted to say that about, you know, who we're being really matters in the encounter. And there's a ton of scientific data to support that. The other thing I wanted to talk about, did you want to say anything about that?
No, no, I totally agree with that. But I was thinking back to the first, like the yellow car that you want to buy. Suddenly there's lots of yellow cars. Also,
absolutely,
where you draw your attention, you also start seeing things that are always there, but now you
totally,
because we only receive 10% of
that's right. Yeah, sorry, I got excited. You brought up such a good point, which is, you know, in neuroscience, you know this, we call it the reticular activating system, or RAS. You know, it's that part of our brain that once we become aware of something, or we have a new experience, now we begin to look for it everywhere, right? So the yellow dress, or the Volkswagen Beetle, or the fat, where is that fascia really disconnected? Where at first you might be going like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. Like, let me just go back to what I know. But when you learn that system, intuition is actually very neuroscientific, which is to say your nervous system begins to pick up subtlety and sensitivity that previously may not have been aware of, because different parts of your brain are more active.
And I love how you tie in confidence, you know, because as I'm training practitioners, they say, oh, well, you can do it because you've got magic hands or you've got confidence. It's like, no, it's a learning process. You build the confidence that creates your reality, their reality. They see the reality. It also engages them fully. And we're also paying attention to the context of their situation, the context of their pain, for example, right? So one of the things that I find really helps is if we're looking much more multidimensionally, we're actually listening to their experience in life, right? Everything about their life, not just the pain they came to ideally solve, right? And that's where we start to understand the way pain works, you know, and how pain can be so different for so many different people, and the way it's triggered for different people. And so anyway, it really comes, it's a combination of being there, like he's being completely present and listening so that you can respond with all the layers that are in play, because there's not, it's not just a body on a table, and you're not just a practitioner with hands.
Exactly. There's so much richness into what you just said. I want to respond to that and push pause what I was going to talk about fascia and energy flow. Let's get to that later, but
we're going to get to that.
Yeah. Well, this is so critical because, and I want to speak to anybody who's watching this, who maybe is in transition or wants more out of their career and feels like their calling hasn't been fulfilled, or they feel frustrated. You're so not alone. One thing that really struck me when you were talking was the power of community. So when you get into a community, like Dr. Manon's community, you're learning from a master, but she became a master because she did the work. Any of us that attain a certain level of mastery in our lives is we've put in a lot of time to that. We put in a lot of intention and focus, and anybody can do that. When you get into a community though, with great teachers and inspiring people, and you have a greater meaning for what we're doing, and we have really elevated emotions about it, we have a clear focus of where we're going, you can take quantum leaps in where you think you can be. It's amazing. And, in a group environment, we know this again from the studies of emergent biological systems, that groups begin to train to each other, that these morphic fields of energy and intelligence between us can create a higher order of knowledge that people then have access to. And how do we see that works is you learn faster. Why spend decades doing it by yourself when you can learn it in months or years? I mean, there's a subtlety of mastery that I'm still working with, and getting better and better, hopefully for the rest of my life. But that the power of drawing into an energy rich community is life-changing. And, I think the one thing that holds us all back from doing things that we feel really strongly drawn to is just fear. And the best way to deal with that fear is okay, yep, I'm totally scared. I'm totally vulnerable. I feel like I'm not going to get this right. And then, you just do it anyway, and you find a community and a teacher that you trust. Yeah. So I just really wanted to put in that plug just in general. The other thing that you touched on, which is so critical and it's so important to remember, is that it's not the disease. I never wanted to treat the disease or the pain or the disc issue or the shoulder or the irritable bowel syndrome. I wanted to know who that person was. And we know from the research that the meaning and life experience that a person has around their illness or their challenge or their whole life is one of the major determinants of whether or not they heal. And so there was just a couple questions that I would always ask people when they would come in, and they'd be surprised because typically, medicine and especially chiropractors are guilty of this. It's like, oh, where does it hurt? All right, show me. Does it hurt when I do this? Let me do this orthopedic test. Let me do this neurological test. Okay, here's what your x-rays say. Those have a place. And the question I would ask is, hey, so, I'm so glad to see you. Tell me your story. What's going on? And, a simple question like, how's that affecting you? Like, how's that affecting your life? Yeah. Oh, well, oh my God, I can't pick up my kids. I don't feel like I can do my job. And I'd say, okay, what does that bring up for you? I feel like a failure. I feel like a bad parent. I'm scared I'm gonna lose my money. Oh, wow, that's hard. That's gotta be really scary. Yeah, it is. Okay, so I get it. Work with me here. Let's just play for a minute. And so what I would use is I would act, I would wait till I had real connection and rapport, but even just to ask a loving question of let's just think for a minute. 6 months, a year from now, you're free. You feel great. Tell me about your life. And so what I would begin to do is plant seeds of them to be able to actually visualize and dream and see their life with heightened emotion, to see that it was a possibility. And I can't tell you how many people would come in for the second visit before I'd even really done much and be like, I don't know what you did, but I feel so much better. I said, you know what? I didn't do anything. This is you. This is you beginning to wake up. This is your brain literally changing, releases tons of healing hormones. And yes, here's what we should do to really open your body. And here's what my tests say. And these are my findings. But just that ability to connect to the meaning in a person's life experience creates such a bond between patient and doctor, or client and facilitator, whatever nomenclature we want to use. And that bond and that healing awakens confidence within that person. They feel seen, they feel loved. And that is a healing elixir. And I'll tell you, man, the biggest nutritional deficiency we have in medicine is love and compassion. I mean, I was really into functional medicine for a while. Like, we could do tests and find 10 things wrong with anybody. I run an MRI on somebody, I'm going to find something wrong with everybody. You know what? I really came to find out that 80% of the time, simple practices like Bowen, like network, 80% of the time, I think 20% of people needed a little more tweaking, or it just wasn't the right fit. But 80% of the time, just restoring the natural healing flow of a body's fascia, their alignment, their proper functioning of their nervous system, the breath, the ability to feel and become aware of their body. This was incredibly healing. And then you put love and awareness into that, and the certainty and the confidence. I remember one time I had this great mentor, and he asked me, he said, what do you think makes the best chiropractor? He'd studied chiropractors for years. And I said, well, technical skill? He said, no. I said, communication skills? He said, you'd think so, but no. And I said, well, what does make the most potent, powerful healer? He said, it's certainty. It's their certainty. Because that certainty, we have mirror neurons in our brains. And so when they pick up on that certainty and they feel your love behind it, it elicits a possibility within them. And that's really powerful. I mean, look at all the studies on the placebo effect. Just the simple, strong volition and emotional belief that I'm going to take something that's going to heal me, even though it's an innocuous substance, begins to awaken the very healing possibility in a person, is proof of this. That's why I think the placebo effect is super cool. The challenge with the placebo effect is scientifically it doesn't last. But if a person really is able to alter their inner experience and up-level their personality, we know their personal reality is going to have a change as well. And that's why clinical mastery, even just a little bit at a time, if you're one step ahead of your patient, energetically, technically, you're in an amazing place. You don't need to be a master yet. We just need to start where we are and transmit that love and that certainty and that great compassion.
It's funny because I decided I didn't like the way, I know it's called placebo, but I thought I'm going to call it the positivo effect, because placebo has, a limitation, because it's true. If you don't engage it, it's also a way reliably that you can see whether, if you're doing something, whether it's going to work or not, right? So it serves a great purpose. And often, complementary medicine and complementary therapies are, it's just the placebo effect. And the thing is, it's not just that. It's all of what you spoke about, and that enrolling the patient or the client into their own health, which they never have time to do. They can't enroll themselves because nobody's asking them to look at bigger when they've got pain or they've got issues. Everyone keeps them in a box. And that's the foundation of, diagnosis and then the limited prognosis, right? Because it's in a, it's either the Merck or DMS5 now, I think, with even more categories, so it really doesn't, or scans, right? And I was just, doing a bit of research recently, and I was like, oh my goodness, and it made me think of one of the patients I had who had a scan confirm that he had degenerative disc disease. And it's like, that is what nailed the coffin in, right? When I looked at, this huge study, it's like, oh my goodness, in the 90s, at 90%, people with the same level of degeneration that don't experience pain, they also don't have the story that it can create. So some of the time, what we're doing, at least I'm sure this is the same with you, is we're also busting myths, busting misconceptions, kind of going like, okay, here's the world of possibility. And then let's open the coffin of the limited
Yeah.
visibility.
Yeah, well, you bring up a really good point. And I think a lot of your students and you yourself, and when I was in clinical practice, we saw a lot of back pain, right? So Peter O'Sullivan, who's a great physiotherapist from Australia, one of his colleagues actually published a really good study in British Medical Journal Open that said most chronic back pain was iatrogenic, was doctor caused.
Yeah.
For this very reason, because the studies are really clear that, let's say your patient, they get this scan and now they see all these scary things. It changes their meaning, their focus, and their language around their body. And so instead of seeing their spines as amazing structures that are strong and robust and love to move and bend and lift, now we're scared. And so fear drives pain. And that's not a woo-woo statement. There are about 19 centers of the brain that we can accurately state are associated with pain. It doesn't mean that pain only comes from the brain, but the brain is where pain is perceived. And so if the brain no longer perceives the pain, it's not there. So if there's 19 centers of pain, 18 centers of pain in the brain, most of them cross-link often with fear circuits or anxiety circuits. Said another way, fear, anxiety, not trusting our bodies, not having an empowering meeting, feeling run through the system, seeing this thing on the wall and going, oh my God, my spine's totally screwed up and I have to get a needle stuck in my back to get cortisone there, or I need to go see the surgeon next. Oh my God, I'm scared. Yeah. And so what happens is we've totally messed up the real meaning of medicine, which is first, do no harm. I mean, if the research says don't scan everybody just because you can make a buck off it, don't scan everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like just because you can make a buck, don't do it. It actually harms people. But I think the deeper message here is, whatever people's background is, and I know I met a surgeon who did Bowen technique. So there's chiropractors and probably physiotherapists and massage therapists. And you have this whole spectrum of people, no matter where we're at on that spectrum. That ability to detangle those beliefs and myths and give people a more empowering meaning is amazing. Because if we think about what really drives change, and, listen, I'm an energy person, but there are invisible forces around us all the time. My computer is emitting electromagnetic fields. The electrical wires out there have fields around them. Gravity is an invisible field. Love is an invisible influence. Hate is an invisible influence. I mean, the stock market has tumbled because of the invisible effect of fear of the coronavirus. And so emotion is a function of the meaning we give things. So if a person says, oh my God, I have agency over my body. I have this amazing connective tissue network, which is like moving electrical impulses and interfacing with every cell in my body. And here I've got this great guide to take me on this journey. I can do this. That's really powerful. And of course you have your clinical skills and your technical expertise, but changing the meaning changes emotions. And when we get patients to change their emotions, they can absolutely change their pain and change their whole experience. Just thinking of your story of the guy with the knee pain. I mean, it's one simple story, but we are so powerful. And I really want practitioners or students to get this too, is that you're not in this podcast or you're not in this school with Manon or thinking about the school by accident. There's a purpose to everything. And that sense of a vision of something greater than who we are calls in amazing energy and power and purpose and potential. So I love the study of MRIs and I love what it really deeply means to us. And 90% of people over the age of 35 have disc degeneration. And usually people aren't told that.
Yeah,
but that's not a very profitable enterprise.
We didn't just say that out loud, did we?
That's the research. That's the research is about 90% of people over the age of 25 actually have disc degeneration. I think it was 75% of people 25 years old had significant L5S1 disc degeneration. So we don't need to, I think I've made my point there, but so powerful what we can do to help people turn their lives around. And then to turn practitioners' lives around, you see the light come back in their eyes and they're having these experiences and it's amazing, right?
Yeah. No, this is like, it's, I get very excited. I mean, I always get excited with my patients and, even though it's been 30 years I've been doing this, I still hug them because I still can't believe that the body's so incredible. It's like, it just shocks me all the time. And, like, as a practitioner, how amazing is that? And that's, you know, what I want from the students now, because I've closed my practice, you know, and it's like, it's so, it's such a gift to be in that gifting space, you know.
Yeah.
And I agree, there is no coincidence, you know. I mean, there's no coincidence that we met either. And I wanted to just jump on that point where you talked about the fascia, because I was going to say that, you know, once we've done the misconceptions, we've gotten rid of that, we've, you know, kind of gotten back to possibility, the very nature of fascia, the you know, matrix like component, the biological internet of communication, whichever way you want to look at it. It's like, it's such a enrapturing, freeing way, which a lot of people, because of fear and because of their diagnosis that they believe, they don't move, they don't bend, they don't use their body. And we need motion. We're made of motion, right? So, but I wanted you to, because we're probably wrapping up, I want you to explain the fascia in the way that, I mean, I was
like we talked about in
I was in shivers. I was so excited.
Sure. So I'll keep it simple, and we'll infuse it with just my experience and hopefully my wisdom around it. Here's an axiom, and I think we can all agree on this. In fact, I can prove it, that the body is self-healing, self-regulating, and self-organizing. If I take a scalpel and I cut my arm, I wouldn't recommend anybody do that. But, you know, I put a Band-Aid on it, and maybe it's put some essential oils around it, and the next day it's going to begin to heal. You know, when you and I were in school and we were dissecting cadavers, you know, I could slice the cadaver and it's not going to heal. It doesn't have that life. So there's something about life that's self-healing, self-organized, and self-regulating. That's axiom number one. Axiom number two, according to Gray's Anatomy, is that the nervous system, now I'm going to explain what I mean by that in a moment, but the nervous system is the master controller of the body. So therefore, if there is any block or dysfunction within the nervous system, our ability to self-heal and self-regulate is going to be affected. Now, the nervous system is not just the brain and the spinal cord and the peripheral nerve roots. That's a part of it. Neurotransmitters are a part of it. Neuropeptides are a part of it. Fascia is absolutely a part of it. Fascia is the most, you think your bones hold your body up. It's not your bones that hold your body up. If we didn't have fascia, we would be like a garbage bag of organs and muscles. Not only does the fascia provide support, it's contiguous and interdigitated down to the very sensitive structures of the spinal cord and the brain itself. It is an extension of the nervous system. So we could then define the nervous system as the communication networks of the body. There is no system more vast than the system of fascia. And it carries electrical charge. The fascia is not only contiguous and interdigitated with the nervous system and the meninges and the pia mater and the dura mater, all of which is sort of the protective sac around the brain. And every emotion, every thought, every feeling, every life experience we have has a certain posture and tone and tension in the fascial network. So not only does it affect the nervous system, it goes into each cell, like into the microtubules. Now, scientifically, I didn't think this, and I wasn't one of the people who thought this, just because I wasn't one of the researchers, but the microtubules, that's like the scaffolding, you know, that's like the sort of internal structure system of a cell. So we thought it was sort of a passive thing. Microtubules actually carry vibration that's contiguous with the fascia. It's a massive communication network, all of which signals what we call biophotons. And if you want to look up biophotons, because you're like, whoa, this dude's super crazy. I'm not. Biophotons are light particles, photons that your body emits. And that scientists, especially Fritz Popp Albert, or Albert Popp Fritz, has studied and said that he believes, and has, I think there's 36 conclusive studies that talk about light being a major portion of signaling between cells that upregulate or downregulate which genes are expressed. So think about this. We can't have any experience in this world, love, passion, excitement, learning Bowen technique, putting your hands on a person, healing, activating natural killer cells, turning on stomach enzymes, cytochrome P450 in your liver without this network. But what's so cool about this fascial network is not only is it within us, each human living organism has a field of energy around their body, all of which can be measured. Russians have done this. The Heart Math Institute has done this. And that fascial system is absorbing and transducing those energy fields, just like an antenna used to do on a TV. I don't know if anybody has TVs with antennas. I remember as a kid, we had this giant TV in my living room. We had, you know, aluminum foil all over the place so that it could transduce invisible energy and turn it into an image. So we have energy all around us. You know, we are energy. We don't have it. We are it. So the fascial system is structure, it's communication, it's a transducing receptive mechanism. And through it, we express the fullness of our being. And so this is why it goes so much farther beyond health, because when a person then is at their best and they've got that full functioning, optimized nervous system, they have full potential for life. And this is really about life, which is why I love techniques like Bowen or network, or these very vitalistic techniques, even homeopathy. It's about our perception and meaning of life, which now we know scientifically is one of the major drivers of health. Yeah. So I hope that was a good, you know, way to look at it. The last thing I wanted to touch on is that, you know, we as humans are so born to move. And Gay Hendricks, PhD, he wrote the book, I want to say Upper Limits, something like Gay Hendricks, you can look him up. Yeah, he talked about how, I think he was here in Colorado for a while. He's a PhD. And he talked about, you know, as babies, we have about 30,000 ways we move. You know, as we progressively age, people sort of shrink. You used the word earlier that I loved. You said people get into boxes. Literally, people live in boxes. You know, they stare at phones, they stare at screens, they get in their cars, they get in their cubicles, and we feel less. You know, emotion is energy in motion. And the greater range of motion of the fascial system, the greater range of emotion that human being is going to be able to experience. And emotion is what has one of the most powerful impacts on which genes are upregulated or downregulated. It's a major portion of epigenetic theory. So this is really about life. And just to complete the statement about Gay Hendricks, you know, as people age, they move less and less and less and less. Yeah. They experience less and less fullness of life. And of course, more pain and more issues. And the average American, I just found this stat, the average American who's over 60 years old takes 13 to 15 prescription medications. Yeah. I mean, and you're talking about the ability to interface with the most creative structures in the human body that are self-healing and self-regulating. And that's a miracle. And it's not a miracle so much as it's unscientific. It's a principle, and principles are always true. And what we see as miracles are actually really normal. It's the natural effect of alignment and connection. So that's why the fascial system is so important. So I hope that encapsulates some useful thoughts.
Oh yeah, that's definitely encapsulated. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's, I can certainly say by experience, it's what I see, you know, it really feels that way. And I think, you know, to express any part of that deep interconnection that we are, it frees people. It takes the box out. It's bigger. And, you know, and I think, you know, people don't like change apparently, but if you're stuck in fear, it's the only way. It's the only way out. It's to actually have change, but embrace it. And I think, to me anyways, understanding that there's more. I used to have my subtitle in my clinic was for people who know there's more.
I love that.
And it's it was actually called well, I've changed the names a few times, but healing what is. So healing what is, because that's all we're able to heal is what is, right?
I love that. Yeah, God, that's brilliant. That's very enlightened. That was like a Zen master comment. I'm presuming we're close to or at our time.
Oh, we were done. We're done, but we're not done. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, I'd love to talk more. I'm so grateful to be with you and to sit with
likewise.
You and, you know, to any students or just anybody who's listening, that axiom, that you're self-healing, self-regulating, and self-organizing. It's just true about your body as it is about your mind. And then to just lean into and have a relationship with that life. Mm-hmm. And whatever here's the thing, whatever we pay attention to tends to grow. So we can fund our faith or we can fund our fear. If we put our attention and have that relationship with that life, and every client I met, I would just be in such relationship to the flow of life within them. And I would fall in love with the person more than my technique. And just that heartfelt desire, and gosh, miracles happen. And then, you operate in that space, and then you get really good at your bow and technique. And all of a sudden, man, your practice is going to change. And when you're on fire, people will come from miles around to see you burn. And I'm sure you see this a lot of times at the results people get with these very precise and accurate fascial techniques like Bowen is. You can have a referral, totally insurance-free practice. Of course, in Canada, I don't know if it's different, but you can just create such a life of such contribution, which has the energy exchange of true abundance, whatever that means to you.
Yeah. Definitely. I really
Oh, wow. So fun. And we're going to get to see each other in just a few days.
Exactly.
Awesome. So we'll talk more.
Okay, we'll do. I'm just going to stop the recording, but thank you so much.
Yes. So grateful.
Thank you for joining us at the Healers Café with Dr. Manon. For more information, go to drmanonbolliger.com.